People in the audience gasped together when the coffin's hefty lid creaked open. In amazement, Alex's daughter gripped her mother's arm. The color faded from his wife's face. Something completely unimaginable was discovered inside the casket where Alex's dead body should have been. Alex's body was gone. A burlap sack full of pebbles had been placed in its place, as though his burial had been staged. The mourning were filled with confused whispers. With a trembling voice, one of the pallbearers said, "There must be some sort of error here." The director of the funeral, equally appalled, maintained that Alex's body had been inside the casket when it was sealed. Still restless, Thunder kicked his hoofs and neighed sharply, as though he were attempting to communicate with them. Urgency was fierce in his black eyes. With a sudden turn, he pulled at his reins and ran off into the woods next to the property. It seemed as though he was privy to information that others were not. After exchanging terrified looks, Alex's wife Emma and their daughter Lily, along with a few courageous mourners, ran after the horse. Deep into the forest, Thunder guided them with an unrelenting pace and an unflinching course. They followed panting till they came to a little, deserted cottage tucked up in the thickets. The door stood ajar a little, swinging in the breeze. Emma pulled it open and walked forward, her heart racing. Her knees went weak at what she saw within. Alex was there, resting on an improvised cot. Despite his thin appearance and a fragile frame, he was alive since his chest kept rising and falling. When he heard their voices, his eyes opened. He croaked, his voice weak and harsh. "Emma?" Emma raced to his side, tears streaming down her face. "Alex, God, you're still alive." However, a terrifying conclusion hit everyone before they could rejoice. If Alex was present, who was responsible for his alleged demise? Why had his body been swapped out? Lily gripped her mother's hand as anxiety began to seep into her impressionable eyes. Then a low, raspy voice said, "You weren't supposed to find him," from the cabin's shadows. The air became quite frigid. The funeral was a fabrication. An attempt had been made to bury Alex alive. Who, though? Why? The life of his dearest buddy had been rescued by Thunder. The actual nightmare, however, was just getting started. The group stopped. The voice had come from somewhere in the cabin, but it was difficult to see because of the limited light and the strong smell of rotting. Emma's pulse thumping like a drum, she automatically dragged Lily after her. Hank, a large farmer and one of the men from the burial, approached warily. His fists clenched. He questioned, "Who's there?" In a forceful but uneasy voice. Quietness, then there was a steady creak, like if someone were moving in the shadows. Then someone appeared, a thin, unkempt man with wild, tangled hair and sunken eyes stumbled forward. His face was hollow and his clothing were ragged, yet there was something ominous in his eyes. "You shouldn't have come here." He licked his chapped lips and muttered, "He was supposed to stay buried." Emma gasped for air. "Who are you? How did you treat my husband?" The guy shook his head and gave a twisted laugh. "I took no action. They were the ones who want his removal. It was cold in the room." "Who?" Hank held on. "Who wanted Alex dead?" As though anticipating a sudden rush of someone or something entering, the man's gaze shifted to the doorway. "The words you don't understand," he whispered. "They'll observe. They'll come after him once again if they find out he's still alive." Emma's hands gripped his face as Alex moaned, his frail body trembling. The urgent thing she said was, "We need to get him out of here. Whoever did this, we can't let them finish the job." However, Thunder snorted sharply, his muscles stiff, his ears pushed back, before anybody could react. Anxiously, he pawed the earth. A second later, there was a blast of gunfire. Splinters flew everywhere as the bullet smashed through the cabin's wooden wall. "Run!" Another gun rang out and Hank grabbed Lily and shielded her while yelling. Alex fought to stand and Emma shouted, holding on to him. Thunder backed up, his eyes wide with terror, but he stayed put. Rather, he rushed in the direction of the shooting, seemingly prepared to defend his closest buddy. They were being hunted by the unidentified assailant, who was concealed in the forest. The person who had desired Alex's death had not given up. They were now aware that he was still alive. The gathering was thrown into turmoil by the shooting. Still holding Lily close, Hank ran into the trees, his large bulk protecting the frightened girl. With Alex's body still weak from whatever he had been through, Emma labored to raise him, but he clenched his jaw and made himself get up. With a shout of rage, Thunder rushed toward the tree line, his strong hooves roaring into the ground. The bullet just missed the charging horse as the invisible assailant shot again. Then there was quiet. Not another shot. No more moving. Just the rustle of leaves in the chilly breeze and the sound of everyone's frantic breathing. Where did they go? Emma looked wildly into the trees and murmured. Still clutching Lily, Hank turned back to the cabin. His voice was low as he said, "I don't know, but we need to get the hell out of here." But then there was a wheezing, strangled chuckle from the unkempt guy, the one who had forewarned them. He rasped, "You think running will save you?" His sunken eyes glowed with a mixture of fear and insanity. They never stop. They are not forgiving. They are now aware that Alex is still alive. Emma betrayed him. She sought to know, who are they? The man's mouth shook. He teetered a little, as though he were about to pass out. Almost in a whisper, he then said, "The ones who put him in the ground." Emma felt a chill go up her spine. The guy went on, "They'll come for all of you now," his voice becoming softer. "You should have left him buried." Then he fell apart. Hank hurried to see whether the man was still alive, but he was gone. Deceased, Emma's breath was constricted. "We must depart." Right now, as Alex struggled to rise, Hank assisted him in being lifted onto Thunder's back. The horse stood steadfast, perhaps understanding the situation. Without protesting, Emma ascended behind Alex and encircled him with her arms to support him. Lily held onto Hank as they ran toward the farm, away from the cabin that was cursed, and away from the invisible threat that was hiding in the woods. Before they vanished into the trees, Emma couldn't resist taking a quick look back. She swore for a split second that she saw someone standing at the entryway of the cabin. Tall, still, observing even though she was unable to see the face. She knew deep down that it was one of them. Emma forced herself to look aside from the man at the entryway of the cabin, her heart racing. They had to hurry, and there was no time to linger on the fear shooting up her back. Alex sagged feebly against Emma as thunder roared through the woodland. With Lily in tow, Hank did his best to keep up. His breathing was labored. The wind whipped at their cheeks as the trees swooped past them, their branches tearing at their clothing. Then there was a noise. Something slithered across the air, a deep, strange murmur. Words weren't used, not quite, however. It held a negative connotation of being watched and pursued. Emma's hold on Alex became more firm. His skin was so chilly she could feel it. His consciousness was drifting in and out. Her voice cracked as she said, "Hold on, baby." A little bit farther. The air, however, altered as they got closer to the property. It grew thicker and heavier, like though something unseen was bearing down on them. The moonlight was faint and the night seemed darker. Even the powerful and unafraid Thunder hesitated just a moment before continuing on. The farmhouse was then visible. Emma felt a wave of relief. In the distance, the porch light's warm warmth wavered. Security? Then Lily let out a scream. Emma turned her head quickly. Lily's small fists were frantically clawing at Hank's jacket as she stared at something behind them. Emma's blood froze as she followed her gaze. Figures stood still among the trees, almost discernible in the changing shadows. Not one, not two, dozens. Their faces were obscured by the darkness, making their forms hardly human. However, they were observing, awaiting. After then, they began to move. Not going for a stroll, not jogging, flying, pursuing them. Thunder roared back, tearing into the darkness with his mighty scream, "Go! Go!" As they arrived at the farmhouse, Hank shouted, pushing Lily into Emma's arms and snatching a rusting shotgun from the porch. Before Emma could jump off Thunder, Hank closed the door behind them and locked it. The walls trembled as though a huge object had just struck them. Outside, the murmurs became more intense. The windows were scratched by something long, sharp claws. Alex uttered a single, raspy murmur, scarcely able to speak. To keep them inside, they buried me alive. Emma's eyes widened as she faced him. She recognized then that Alex had not just been brought back, something else had been released. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more inspiring content.